Welcome to our discussion on a transformative topic, shaping the futures of the ASEAN region, the Digital Economy Framework Agreement, or DEFA. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with Annabel Lee, Director of Digital Policy for Asia Pacific and Japan and ASEAN at Amazon Web Services. In this conversation, we will dive into why DEFA could turn ASEAN into a new digital powerhouse, driving economic growth and technological innovation. We will explore the critical elements of digital trade that DEFA aims to address, its potential impact on the ASEAN digital economy, and how it could accelerate the adoption of technology like AI. Additionally, we will also discuss the challenges of implementing DEFA and the role the business community can play in ensuring its success. Join me in welcoming Annabel Lee as we uncover the facets of DEFA and its significant role in redefining ASEAN's digital landscape. Annabel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me as well. I'm really excited to talk about the DEFA today.
Annabel, DEFA is expected to play a pivotal role in shaping the digital trade landscape within ASEAN. So to start off the conversation, could you shed light on the key elements of digital trade that DEFA should address and explain how it will facilitate cross-border digital transactions within the region?
Yeah, absolutely. So once concluded in 2025, the DEFA or DEFA, as we often call it in industry, will be the first regional digital economy agreement in the world. And it's extremely important for ASEAN to get it right. So I think, first of all, we should highlight that, ASEAN has excellent precedents to draw inspiration from developing the DEFA. Today, Singapore, where I am based and where I'm from, has already been designing these digital economy agreements globally. They have already signed a number of these agreements, including with Australia, Chile, and South Korea. And so really, ASEAN is not starting from scratch in that way. They can learn from some of these digital economy agreements that have already been signed globally. From our perspective, I think it's very important, therefore, for ASEAN to think about how to unlock tremendous growth opportunity from the digital economy through the DEFA. And I think there are a couple of key elements that we have seen working really, really well in some of these agreements that have already been signed that we are hoping will be reflected in the ASEAN DEFA as well. I'll just run through them very, very quickly. There are 5 key elements that we are hoping to be able to see. The first of these elements are to develop high standard digital trade rules that promote cross-border data flows and discourage data localization. If we think about ASEAN is 11 countries, very, very different economies, very different political systems as well. So making sure that despite all these differences, that there is a good common approach for cross-border data flows will be critical to ensuring that we can unlock the digital economy gains that are present through DEFA. The second point that we would like to highlight is the need for the ASEAN DEFA to embrace international standards and best practices, particularly to accelerate the adoption of emerging technologies. This includes AI technologies as well as cybersecurity technologies. Why is this so important? Because as with everything digital, you cannot be isolated from the rest of the world. And so looking at these international standards and best practices will ensure that as the ASEAN countries go digital and integrate digitally more closely, that they will be able to also interoperate with the rest of the world. So this is very, very important. The third key element that we would love to see is policies and a DEFA that promotes non-discriminatory and risk-based approaches towards cybersecurity. If we think about cybersecurity, this is an increasing concern for citizens everywhere in the world, but certainly as well in ASEAN, as more and more services and applications go digital. So ensuring that governments put cybersecurity developments at the core and ensure that they are thinking about how do we make sure that the policies are actually going to focus on the outcomes? How do we make sure that the policies are not going to discriminate? And what we mean by that is that they do not, that they allow for the most cutting edge cybersecurity technologies to be able to be used amongst ASEAN countries. This will be very, very important. Fourthly, it will be important for ASEAN DEFA countries to think about adopting best practices for public procurement of digital technologies. A very big portion of any digital economy framework agreement is ensuring that the governments, who are often kind of the first movers in many countries to adopt digital, are doing so in a manner that allows for the best technologies to be available, to be adopted. And so these kinds of public procurement frameworks will be very important to ensure that governments can actually digitally transform as well. And finally, it's very important for the DEFA to actually maintain non-discrimination at the core of high standard digital trade rules. So non-discrimination being that within the DEFA countries, as well as with their global trading partners, that they continue to ensure that the flow of digital technologies, the flow of data will be able to occur, and that there wouldn't be a discrimination between and within ASEAN countries for example, local preferences. So this is very, very important to ensure that the digital economy as a whole will be able to grow. Thank you.
Annabel, with these 5 key elements, it is expected that the DFA would double the ASEAN digital economy to 2 trillion by 2030. It is a significant highlight. So could you elaborate on how this agreement will specifically foster business growth and boost the investor confidence in ASEAN region as a whole?
Absolutely. I think, in fact, the DEFA study that was launched recently at the end of last year already very clearly articulated the benefits in which could be accrued if the DEFA is implemented properly. And this is because digital is not limited to only a particular sector. Digital has its impacts across all sectors and even outside of its immediate sphere of digital technologies. And so what we can actually see is that a high standard of DFA will create a very conducive environment for businesses. It will actually reduce the barriers for business to be able to operate and function. It will create new business models. We've already seen that through a lot of startups, but also it will be able to transform all business models so that they are more efficient, they can run at a lower cost, and create new and innovative services that will definitely add to the overall economy in ASEAN. It will not only do a lot for that the economic growth, but it will also enhance connectivity and ensure that there is more inclusion in and across ASEAN countries. And this means that more and more citizens, those including those in the rural areas, will be better able to actually do business across the region, which would be amazing, because previously you could only be able to connect to the internet if you had maybe you are in a metro city center. You would maybe be able to only do an online business or even a business to reach a large audience if you are in a city center. But with digital technologies, you are actually able to do business anywhere. And so we've already seen a lot of those benefits gain right now. And so through DEFA, through a good implementation of DEFA, we'll see that continue to increase.
So you think that the estimate of $2 trillion by 2030 would be achievable?
I think it would be absolutely achievable. I mean, I am not an economist, but I can imagine that if we can calculate all the positive externalities as well as all the accelerated gains as a result of a deeper economic integration, that number, I think, would be definitely achievable. If we look today already, ASEAN has 70 million. Okay, 70 million is the number. Micro, small, and medium enterprises, so MSMEs, across the 11 countries. It contributes today to 85% of employment in ASEAN and 44.8% of the GDP in ASEAN. So if we think about then that deeper integration, as I mentioned, more innovative services being able to come online, more businesses being able to connect, that number could double, from 70 million to 140 million. So certainly, I think the 2 trillion number is just really the tip of the iceberg in terms of what the DEFA can do for the economies of ASEAN.
Okay, back to technology component, Annabel. Emerging technologies such as AI are at the forefront of the next wave of digital transformation. So how can DEFA act as a catalyst in driving the adoption of these technologies across ASEAN countries?
Thanks so much for that question. I think it really all boils down to what we've already been talking about. So facilitating cross-border data flows and embracing international standards. When the DEFA does that, it will ensure a very good baseline set of policies and set of standards that will enable new technologies to be accessible to the public, to businesses all over ASEAN. Now, without a solid foundational set of policies around cross-border data flows in particular, and I'll draw attention to that, cybersecurity as well, you will struggle to be able to actually engage with emerging technologies like AI. Ultimately, in order to be able to use AI, you need to ensure that you have good data and have the ability to process that data and have the ability to secure that data. And so I think as long as the DEFA is focused on creating good policy frameworks that are interoperable, that will allow for data to flow in a secure and responsible way, this will then enable emerging technologies like AI to actually flourish. And what we have seen with amazingly with technologies like AI is not only big companies who have deep pockets who can use AI. I think what we've seen actually in the last few years is the democratization of AI, and so many startups across ASEAN already today are using AI, and they're able to do so with cloud services. For example, AWS cloud services. So we'll continue to see that grow and grow. And in order for that to happen, I think the DEFA really needs to ensure that innovation is at the core and good policies around cross-border data flows are at the core.
Thank you, Annabel. Actually, there are plenty of positive sides within this agreement, but implementing a framework such as a DFA comes with its sets of challenges as well, especially considering the diversity within ASEAN, such as you mentioned that Singapore is far ahead of some other ASEAN countries. So what are the key challenges you foresee in the effective implementation of DFA, and how might this be tackled to ensure equitable benefits for all the member countries? Additionally, what role do you envision the business community playing in this process?
Thank you for that question. So I think, first of all, what I want to say is, in my perspective, digital technologies truly are the great equalizer. And as I mentioned, we have seen many generations of leapfrogging. So, with the access to mobile internet, a lot of rural communities have been able to actually run small businesses over the internet already. So we've already been seeing those kinds of success stories today. I think what will be very, very important in terms of effective implementation is ensuring that the variety of regulatory frameworks that are available across the region are interoperable, are something that, if I'm a business, let's just say I'm a business from Indonesia, and I want to be able to reach customers in Thailand, that I am able to do so understanding the regulatory requirements, because it's actually very similar to mine. So that would be a very, very ideal situation and will enable business to flourish. I think another thing that I want to point out is that we've already, as a company, AWS, we've invested across the whole of ASEAN, so not only in Singapore, the whole of ASEAN, already about $22.5 billion across the whole of ASEAN. We've been doing it since 2010. We will expect to see more and more investments coming to this region because it is such a region with so much potential growth. So today, we've already announced data center projects that we will be launching in the coming years in Thailand, in Malaysia, and in Indonesia. We already have physical infrastructure in Vietnam and the Philippines as well. So I expect that we will continue to make these investments in the ASEAN countries because of this huge potential. So in my view, I think the most important thing is to make sure that we see the business community continuing to help with capacity building to ensure that the investments are being spread across the region. And again, even if we are investing in one country with physical infrastructure, the skill sets, the job skill sets that actually are required to be able to run this infrastructure, to be able to build applications on the cloud, these skill sets can come from anywhere across ASEAN. So capacity building by big businesses across the whole of ASEAN is going to be extremely critical to ensure the success of the ASEAN DEFA as well. And I think that's the biggest way in which our business community can contribute. And just to share, today AWS is already doing a lot to skill in ASEAN. Globally, we have committed to 29 million people around the world. And in ASEAN, we have already trained over 5 million people with cloud skills since 2017. We expect that number to continue to increase exponentially as obviously we have more and more data center infrastructure in the region. Thank you.
That is good news. Annabel, I wish that I could have another 10 minutes to continue this conversation, but our time is really up. So thank you so much for joining me today, Annabel, and looking forward to meeting you another time.
Thank you so much for your time as well.
Thank you everyone for joining me in this episode of SEAD Expert Talk Solution Series. I'm Suthia. Goodbye.